Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson, and hello, Sean Aylmer.
Hello, Michael.
Sean, on weekdays, it's always about the Fast Five, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. On the weekend, we still keep it to 5 minutes, but we're going to pick out the biggest story of the week, the sleeper story, one that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, the most remarkable story, and our favourite story. So let's jump into it. What was the biggest story of the week for you?
For the second week in a row, it was markets. The ASX put on about $120 billion in just 2 sessions. Now, it came back a bit later in the week, but for all those shareholders out there, for example, with big holdings of bank stocks, and most of us have super funds, so we hold bank stocks, it was a good week. Why did the market bounce? Well, locally, the Reserve Bank decided to lift interest rates by 25 basis points, not 50. In the US, there's been a run of weaker data. All that together suggests that central banks might not lift interest rates quite as much as expected. Bit of movement going on in currency markets as well. The Aussie dollar fell against the US dollar because of the interest rate decision. Also, bond prices surged. Plenty going on in markets, Michael.
Yeah, it's been a big week on markets. For me, the big story this week was all about property because this week we kind of got a clearer idea of what's happening with interest rates. Up until now, there's been a series of supersized rate increases. This week, the board of the RBA went a little bit smaller with a 25 basis point hike. Economists think the cash rate's going to peak at around 3%. It's currently at 2.65%. So what does that mean? If you're a homeowner, if you've got a $750,000 variable rate mortgage, this cycle of rate rises is going to end up adding about $1,200 per month to your repayment. So no wonder property prices have taken a hit. This week we saw more evidence of that. House prices across capital cities fell by 1.4% in September. The 5th drop in a row. You've got to go 40 years back to find a decline as steep as this. How far is it going to go? The national average capital city price is down around 5% at the moment. Reserve Bank Governor Phil Lowe says 10% sounds about right. Some are saying kind of 15%, even up to 20%. Really, we haven't hit the bottom of this yet.
That's very true. Michael, what's your most remarkable story of the week?
All right, most remarkable. I've kind of combined a couple in here because it's been a big week for Elon Musk. The Twitter deal might be back on. Mr. Musk has revived his bid to buy the social media group for the original price of $44 billion US. It's an about face for the Tesla boss. He's been trying to back out of his contract to buy Twitter for a while now, been very critical of management, the value of the platform, the number of bots that are on the platform. The change of heart should help end a courtroom fight over the acquisition too. Another thing that's happened for Elon Musk this week is some detail about how Tesla is struggling to get cars to customers. They delivered almost 344,000 cars worldwide in the last 3 months. It was a record quarter, but down on what analysts expected because of some challenges with transporting the vehicles at a reasonable price. And one more little bit that I'm just going to add in here. This week, we found out that the EV demand in Australia is growing. The Tesla Model Y was the 3rd largest selling car last month behind the Toyota Hilux and the Ford Ranger Ute, Sean.
Yeah, I agree. Remarkable week for Tesla, for Elon, the whole lot. With you on that one.
Sleeper story. What was it for you?
Look, I think it's more of a waking up story rather than a sleeper story. Ever since the previous government passed legislation providing for big tax cuts for middle income earners, supported by the then opposition, people have thought that they're going to get more money in their pockets from the middle of 2024. Take a tip from me, it ain't going to happen. Treasurer Jim Chalmers is backing away from it. Now, these tax cuts are supposed to introduce a flat 30% rate for anyone earning between $45,000 and $200,000. Middle-class income earners will win from it. Problem is, it costs $20 billion a year and we can't afford it. Also, who needs to put money back in people's pocket when inflation is soaring? Dr. Chalmers is inching away from it. I reckon when the budget's handed down in a few weeks' time, there's going to be changes.
Yeah, I reckon you might be right. All right, favourite story of the week, Sean. Can I nominate one for this?
Sure.
My favourite this week is just a big win for common sense. European Parliament has voted to force all mobile phones, cameras, tablets and the like to use a USB-C power connector by 2024. Not such a big issue really for most devices because they already use it, but it's a little bit trickier for the world's most valuable company, Apple, because they use a lightning connection instead. Apple argued that it would kind of create waste and limit innovation, but they lost that one. If they're forced to change the cable for iPhones in Europe, you'd think they'd do the same for the rest of the world too. This is a big win for simplicity, a win for minimalism, just a win for good old common sense, I reckon.
Yeah, look, my favourite story has got to do with Kim Kardashian because we never get to talk about KK on Fear and Greed, and this week we did. She's agreed to pay $1.3 million to settle charges with the US securities regulator for promoting a cryptocurrency without saying she was paid to do so. Basically, she asked her 224 million then followers, are you guys into crypto? Then drew attention to Ethereum Max, a new coin at the time. It surged. A week later, it fell 70%. Someone made a lot of money and a lot of people lost money. It's a remarkable story as much as anything because it shows the role of finfluencers. These are people who don't necessarily have any skill or experience giving financial advice. Why someone would buy a token because Kim Kardashian told them to do so is beyond me, but that's what's happening around the world. And this fine, hopefully, will stop others from doing the same thing.
Yeah, it shows why it's so important to get professional advice before making investment decisions.
Oh, well said, Michael.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
There we go, 5 minutes and pretty much everything that's happening in the world of business. Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. And don't forget to check out our new podcast, How Do They Afford That?, featuring Canna Campbell, the founder of Sugar Mama TV, all about making your money work a little bit harder for you. I'm Michael Thompson. Have a great weekend.